Habib, what would you say your definition is for smart manufacturing? And maybe more importantly, how would you define the smart manufacturing mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously there are many different definitions, but to me the simple one is stepping back and reimagining the end-to-end work that we do, taking advantage of data and digital enablement to do it better, faster, and to make better decisions. To me, that's the most common sense answer that makes sense. And the mindset of that is the beginning of what I just said. People normally go after individual spot solutions, what I sometimes describe as random acts of digital. Yeah. But really the value comes when you reimagine your work process end to end, step back and discuss what are we trying to do, what decisions are we trying to make, what outcome are we trying to enable, and then take advantage of the technology available to do it better, not look for use cases for technology within the same old work process.
Excellent point. We're always about look at the problem you want to solve first rather than looking at the technologies that you could apply to a situation. Honestly, the thing that stuck out in that answer was stepping back and reimagining the process. Don't necessarily look at it as, hey, this is what it is today, so it's got to look like something like this tomorrow with a little bit more technology and throughput, but really look back and say, hey, where do we want to be? So my next question is, you were on CESMII showed the smart manufacturing mindset. You were in one of their webinars in, I believe, April 2023, and you referred to smart manufacturing as a leadership exercise, not a digital exercise. What are the characteristics of a smart manufacturing leader?
Yeah, so a smart manufacturing leader has to be aware enough of the possibilities to have a bigger ambition than let's just deploy some digital solutions to make incremental gains. So to me, a truly enlightened digital leader doesn't fully understand how to do it, but understands enough to step back and look at the end-to-end work process and ask the right questions to the right people who know how the technology can enable and improve those work processes. And in my experience, the companies that have achieved the best outcome from transformation are the ones where senior leaders actually were completely bought into it. They didn't have the solution, but they knew what questions to ask, and they knew how to paint an ambition that was much more significant than let's go make some incremental dollars.
Yeah, I like that, there's an element of the last answer in there. A leader for smart manufacturing is someone that is able to take that step back. Another question I have for you, and you mentioned this right at the start of our conversation, how do you avoid random acts of digital or pilot purgatory? Two different things, but how do you avoid some of these pitfalls I feel like people end up in when they're pursuing a smarter manufacturing operation?
Yeah, I think certain amount of ground up innovation is good, but you want to really step back and understand what problems are we trying to solve and how can I take advantage of those solutions at scale. And taking advantage at scale really means you have to step back and not do pilots. I'm a big fan of what McKinsey call lighthouses.
Yeah.
And the difference in my mind is it's semantic, but it's very important. A pilot is tactical use of tools to try something. A lighthouse is solving a holistic problem, and done properly, that lighthouse becomes a beacon that draws others in to scale up. Okay. And so the technique I use more often than anything else at my work is I use lighthouses to demonstrate the value very quickly. Agile approach, take 3 months, demonstrate a minimum viable product that's unlocking a lot of value, and let that draw in all the other sites who say, well, I want that now because that's really interesting and it's going to solve a problem for me that's interesting and relevant.
I'm going to remember that answer for a while because I've heard about pilot purgatory and pilots all the time, but I think the way you define that, to me, makes very clear sense. Pilot is a tactical, hey, let's try out some technology, let's see how it works, versus a lighthouse, which admittedly is a new term I've just been hearing over the course of the past year, but a lighthouse is more like taking that step back and looking at the holistic problem and being like, how do we solve this? So my last question for you then is, innovation and transformation involve evolving the way people work. So what tips do you have for breaking the status quo, particularly in a large organization? You work within a large organization. How do you show people what's possible?
Yeah, and that's a very tricky journey for a leader, because you don't want to be someone who's lecturing people. You are uninformed, this is the way to do it. People resist because there's a reason. So you have to listen as much as talk, and listening why they're resisting. Part of it could be because they're a product of their journey, and in their journey over 20, 30 years, they never did anything digital. Or they could be that they have me issues. Well, I don't know how to do this. Am I going to lose my job if I enable it? Or just lack of general awareness of this topic, so they don't want to look uninformed. So being very empathetic, sitting down one-on-one rather than in groups, bringing lighthouses and external use cases where this has worked, to show them the way is very powerful. And the other technique I use is I find examples outside of our industry where transformation has taken hold, and I take leaders who might otherwise hesitate to those types of assets to take a look. Look what they've done. This is not exactly what you do, but these concepts apply. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to try? Let's do a lighthouse. And if we do a lighthouse, and if the lighthouse is successful, your commitment must be that we scale up. Okay, otherwise we don't do a lighthouse for the sake of a lighthouse. And that's the collaboration and the partnership. And it's working.
Yeah, no, setting the onus, setting the expectation that, hey, we're only doing a lighthouse if we're going to scale afterwards, because the reality of doing a lighthouse is it is something that can be scalable. Just one more final question then, because you mentioned the importance of looking at other industries, which I totally agree with. Since we have a manufacturing audience listening to this, what would you recommend is another industry or two that people should be looking at for examples of where there are successful transformations taking place? Do any come to mind?
Yeah, I think you don't have to go outside of manufacturing, but you go outside of your sector, right? So for example, if I'm in oil and gas, I recently took some of my colleagues to see consumer packaged goods. Soaps being made, soft drinks being bottled, and look how they do it and how that is so much different than how we do it. And if we took some of those learnings and applied at our business, we'd do these things better. So, you don't have to go to a two-sided marketplace on the web, which is maybe a bridge too far for those who aren't up to speed yet. Yeah. Eventually you can take them there because there's some interesting nuggets, but you have to be deeper into it before you go that far. But within manufacturing, different sectors, I think works very well.
Excellent. I like how you reeled that in to make it even, hey, you're looking at different industries, different verticals, keeping it similar but different, and looking at the best practice they're using in those spaces. So, Habib, I really appreciate you taking us through this today. Thanks so much for jumping on Manufacturing Happy Hour. Cheers.
My pleasure.